WorldRider, the podcast edition. Podcasting. Who would have ever thought?
Hi, this is Allan Karl, WorldRider. Thanks for tuning into my YouTube channel here. Hey, this is actually just kind of something that's off the usual track here on the YouTube channel. But I did a podcast with a couple who are locked down in Spain in mid-June 2020. And they had just started to choose a life of traveling by motorcycle on the road. Gave up their house, gave up their apartment, gave up all of their things. And 2 weeks into this trip, after making that big decision, there they are, locked down in Spain, on their way to Morocco, but all the borders are closed. Meet Travis and Chantil Gill. And listen, it's got a watermark on the on the video here, but you can listen to it. And that's because we used a call recorder application that I just couldn't find my license for. So I found it after, of course, we did the whole podcast. But I put their logo on top of their faces to not be so obnoxious. But nonetheless, this is Travis and Chantil Gill locked down in Spain just 2 weeks into a life that they hope will be on the road on motorcycles. Hey, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and like this video. Really makes a big difference. I thank you. And stay tuned.
Hey, welcome to another WorldRider podcast. This is Allan Karl, your host, and I am so excited. It's really been a tough thing for me over these years to keep up with these podcasts, with all the writing I'm doing, with the books I'm writing, keeping the blog updated. It's always a challenge, and it's often it's often fun when somebody reaches out. Somebody has read my book, somebody I've run into on the road, and says, "Hey, Allan, when are you doing your next podcast? Would you be interested?" And my guests today did just that. So it's almost like I got a little bit of a push to get another podcast out. Now, I said, and you'll meet Travis and Chantil in a minute here, but I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Absolutely, let's do a podcast, especially given that we're a lot of us, although we're loosening up a bit. But this podcast is recorded here on what is it, the June 18th or 19th? It's Juneteenth actually. It's a they're working on a holiday. The anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, the freedom of slaves in the U.S. Juneteenth. So good time for that. But my guests are from the United States, and they're not there now. They're locked down as well. Let me tell you a little bit about Travis and Chantil Gill. First of all, Travis grew up in Colorado, and like a lot of young men, right out of high school at 18, he joined the Navy. And we'll ask him. I think he just wanted to, maybe just was putting in like a lottery ticket thinking maybe he'd get assigned to San Diego, America's finest city, because we are a huge Navy town here. But that's not it. This guy joined the Navy and is a nuclear engineer, and he served on 2 submarines. Have you ever been on a submarine? Huh. And living in San Diego, he also got an officer commission, and he went to our great SDSU, San Diego State University, and served as a naval flight officer for 17 years. So this guy is a career, military Navy sailor, I guess. Can I say that? My dad was in the Navy. But he retired in 2019. But let's rewind a bit, because it's not just him who's on the call today. It's his lovely wife, Chantil, who grew up in Idaho and met Travis actually in Idaho Falls, where he was learning how to operate these submarines, apparently, at the nuclear power school. And she also figured this was a free ticket to get to San Diego. Everybody wants to come to San Diego. They were married. They've got 2 kids. Sierra is a daughter, is 25, and Aaron just turned 21. And they're on their own. So after retiring, I guess maybe before retiring, these guys traveled a lot, but mostly domestically from California and Washington. They were in Florida, Virginia, and then I guess took a bit and got to Germany. But what brings them here? Why are we talking about some ships I might have passed in the night while I live here in San Diego? They they got the bug actually pretty late in career. We'll learn about that, into motorcycling, and have decided to pursue a lifelong passion to travel the world, but not just to travel, but to travel on bikes. And this is not like Chantil's grabbing Travis's waist and riding pillion or two up. No, she is a rider as well. So before I go in much more, they could tell a lot better than I do. Let's bring in Travis and Chantil. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's our pleasure, Alan. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's kind of come back. So somehow, where are you right now?
We are in Spain, in the region of Murcia. It's in southern Spain. It's a province and a region in itself. But yeah, that's where we're at.
And how did you get there?
Locked down.
Yeah. How did you get to Spain?
All right. So, like you were saying in the introduction, 2020 was our year to start traveling full time, and the bikes were already in Germany. And we flew back, picked up the bikes in early March, and then we were making our way to Morocco, of all places. And then, as we know, the coronavirus pandemic, was definitely hitting Europe hard. It was especially hard in Italy, and we just kind of kept our ear to the news. And then before you knew it, it snuck up on us, and within 2 weeks of us leaving, we were in a state of alarm in Spain, with the whole country being locked down in quarantine.
But
Wow.
There's another cool thing is how we actually got the bikes to Germany, which is even cooler than starting out in Germany.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah.
So were you? You said you flew back. So were you in Germany, or were you in the U.S.? Like, you were living in Germany, right?
We were.
Yeah,
yes.
I had an opportunity. Once the kids were on their own, we were empty nesters, and then we had an opportunity to go to Germany and serve under a NATO command. And I thought, well, this is the time.
Yeah.
And we jumped on that. And how we got to Germany was via 2 motorcycles through Iceland.
Ah, okay. I did read that. So you actually did the same thing I did. You got that little ferry, and I won't be able to pronounce that port. And you went to the Faroe Islands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sandúxandapaf. Yes.
For sure. So we shipped the bikes from Portland, Maine, via boat, and then a month later we flew to pick them up in Reykjavik.
Yeah. Yeah. I did the same thing. My bike went to Portland. Actually, it went from New Jersey on the back of a guy's pickup truck to Portland. I didn't go with it, and then I eventually flew to meet it in Reykjavik as well. And then, so did you roll the bikes off in the Faroe Islands and cruise around?
We did.
We did.
Nice.
The choices
The whole week.
late September was you could either enjoy 2 hours in the Faroe Islands or you could enjoy 7 days. So we took the 7-day option.
We did.
Well, when I did it, it was a 3-day. I think I had a 3-day, so we spent 3 days there. Yeah. Yeah. No rain or anything, right? It's all very dry. It's very arid desert climate there, you know.
But it's
For sure. We actually lucked out. We had rain 1 day in the Faroes.
in the Faroes, yeah.
Oh, really?
So we lucked out.
Yeah.
But it's green and lush. It's beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
This is
It's kind of
fantastic.
it's so untapped too. I think that's the beauty of the Faroes. It's untapped, and it's you can just experience it for what it is.
Yeah, there's a people, when you say Faroe Islands, nobody knows where it is. Although they're really trying. I mean, they're a little self-conscious because they believe that people give them the bad rap because of the whale killing. You know, did you find them self-conscious about this?
I didn't. I think we were there later in the season, and we didn't really. It wasn't brought up or discussed.
Yeah, it's interesting because they feel that they've gotten bad press, and it's a cultural thing. But we won't get into the whales there. But I found it to be,
beautiful country,
beautiful, unbelievable, and those tunnels between the islands. Think about
Tunnels
talk
amazing.
about the engineering. You're an engineer. Just to you connect to this little archipelago with you couldn't do bridges. It would be frozen all the time, and I was there in was it the end of July, early August? I can't remember. But they have this thing called the G Fest. The G Fest.
Oh, okay.
They call it the Woodstock of the North Atlantic. It's a live music fest. Oh yeah, and they bring out the hot tubs, because it's all about the hot tubs, and they're
sure.
on the beach and crazy. They certainly like their beer.
Of course.
Yeah. So you got to Iceland, and then from Iceland you went to the Faroe Islands. You rolled your bikes off in Denmark, and did you go straight to Germany from there, or did you do a little bit of cruising?
Yeah, because I needed to work, so
Okay.
that's how we showed up. And then I served in Germany for 2 years, and then during that time we just took vacation time like most Americans, and tried to fit as much as we could into 30 days of paid vacation every year.
Wow. So let's move back, because you bought these motorcycles. You bought one. It's your bike, Travis, I guess, is the 2011, right? Is yours the Surtau? You're riding the Surtau because you're taller, right?
Yeah, I'm a little taller. Yeah. So originally we bought the 2011 for me, and then Chantil, you could tell them the story. She decided that she should go to a Horizon Unlimited event in Yosemite
by myself.
By herself.
Because he had to go to work every day.
Yeah.
So I went for a week. I
took-
left Monday morning.
She took my bike to Horizons Unlimited.
I'd only been riding for 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when she called us, it was my son and I. We stayed back home, but every time she would call us, she was like super jazzed about traveling the world. And I remember telling Aaron, I was like, I think we lost your mom. Like, she's probably going to join a motorcycle group, and she's
There
just
was a
going to
lot
leave.
of women there though too. They pumped me up pretty good.
Every 4 days you're getting a new tattoo. This was what was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But she came back. Fortunately, she came back. But the deal was done. Once she went to Horizons Unlimited and experienced all those other travelers, she was like, all right, I'm getting another bike. I'm getting another motorcycle.
So but you mentioned in your bio here that you had previously your only two-wheeled experience, other than I imagine bicycles, was these Honda Ruckus scooters, right?
Yeah,
so when was that?
Huh?
When was that?
It was just
well, we bought the scooter for our son to give him some independence.
Yep.
And then we started riding it, and
we rode it more than he did.
Man, these are the funnest things ever. Like, how did we wait until our 40s to discover motorized two-wheel vehicles? Like, yeah, it blew our mind how much fun they were.
That's amazing.
So we used them more than Aaron did.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So so 2015, that's just a few years ago, okay? That's
not long, yeah.
I was just finishing my book. I was just getting it out on the road about that time. Yeah. So you bought the motorcycles, or you bought the first one, and Chantil went to up there, hang out with Grant and Susan at Horizons Unlimited and everybody else up there.
Yeah, for sure.
And chilled out and said, you know what, we're gonna do this.
We're gonna do this.
Yeah. So it was really the Ruckus that led you to the first G650.
Yeah.
And then
our first bikes we've ever owned is G650s.
Okay, now fast forward. They're over in Iceland. You've gotten off the ferry. You're ridden to Germany. You're doing your 30 days. Chantil, you didn't keep your feet still. You didn't stay in Germany. I mean, those long words of that language just always getting you. I guess. So you decided to go to Nepal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about this little expedition.
Well, Travis says that he was going to go on this all boys, really illy-rad race. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a girl in. So, but Steph Javon is the one that sponsored this race to Kathmandu and to Nepal, right? So in Tibet. So we were going to go to Mount Everest Base Camp, and we're like all girls team. And I was like, I'm doing this. This is going to be so much fun. So I jumped on board with that. And when he left, I left and went on my own little ride in up in Kathmandu, Nepal, down into Tibet.
But you didn't send the G650 to Nepal, did you?
No,
You're in Nepal. Yeah. What else do you ride?
You ride a Royal Enfield,
right?
yeah.
there's no other motorcycle you could take to Everest Base Camp.
This is true. This is true. So,
but the thing is, it says 10% off road, but I'm telling you, Nepal there's no paved roads in Nepal. I'm sure of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you already know too. But
I've actually haven't ridden in Nepal, but it reminds like Bolivia. There are no.
Yeah.
It's a very funny experience when you take the main road from the capital of the city to its like biggest city, and it's paved for about 10 minutes, and then it's shit.
And then it had been raining because the rainy season it was just getting over, so there was a lot of mud.
Yeah,
it was mud up to our I don't know, over our tires. There was so much mud. And the first day of mud, we the guy that supported us, he lost 8 clutches.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was going to ask you how many times
there was 24 women, and he went through 8 clutches that first day.
And none of the women went through any clutches, huh?
Oh yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
The bikes. Yeah. The bikes.
The bikes. Yeah.
Yeah. Those bikes. I was gonna. Actually, there's a guy here who I train with at the gym, and he bought like a 2016 new Royal Enfield, and there's probably the only one in Encinitas here. Yeah. But he's tricked it out. It's very cool. But those bikes certainly not the epitome or the pinnacle of maintenance free. Quite a different thing than your BMW. Yeah.
Right. But the clutches are really easy to change on them.
Okay. There you go.
Right on the trail.
Right on the trail. Yeah, just plug it in like a Lego, I guess, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Hilarious. So you did the Ilirad then in Croatia, right?
Yeah, and admittedly the 650 was a heavy bike for the Ilirad type of terrain, but I knew immediately after Ilirad that then I was going to go touring mode and just ride through all the Alps. So I picked 21 alpine passes out throughout Austria, Italy, Switzerland, and I knew I wanted to ride those over the next 3 weeks. So the 650 was, I think, great bike for that. A little heavy for the Ilirad, but it did just fine. It got through it all.
Yeah, and you've obviously have met other travelers. Certainly, Chantil, at the Horizons Unlimited, you meet a lot of these guys, and a lot of would-be, wannabe, and soon-to-be adventurers go out and they buy that big boy, that GS. Now what is it? A 1250. They keep adding on to it. Yeah. What about you? You chose the 650. Obviously, it was your first bike, but you're not a little guy. How tall are you?
5'11".
5'11". So you would be fine.
About 195.
Yeah, fine to be fitted onto a 1200 or a 1250, but you chose the 650. And obviously, in the Ilirad thing, you learned that probably even that is too big for that kind of riding.
I'd say the biggest bike other than mine was like a Husqvarna 701, which is about 100 pounds even lighter than our bikes. So.
And what do you? I mean, after then going and being more on tarmac and doing those wonderful Alps passes, did you ever have a second guess and say, well, maybe now I'm on this kind of road, I would like to have a bigger bike? Did you ever have that thought?
No, I didn't. No. A lot of people said that. It's like, yeah, your 650 will be a good. I think that's a very American thing. Like, hey, this will be your starter bike. But I don't. There's no reason. I don't feel any reason to replace our 650. I mean, not until the most recent T7 came out do I feel like that's kind of a decent replacement for the bikes we have. Mm-hmm. But our bikes only have 50,000 miles on them, so they're still, as you know,
you're breaking them in.
Over 100,000 on yours.
Yeah.
Ours are just baby bikes. Yeah, baby bikes.
I actually have 2 of them. One, yes,
yeah,
I have an '05 that is sitting in a garage in Athens in Greece right now, and I was about now I would have been, packing things up, going through my list. End of June I would be there, and I was planning on going to Crete and then to Sicily, and then over to Libya, Algiers, and hopefully meeting you in Morocco eventually.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to happen at this point. So when I did the TV show, my bike was also, it's been over there for 3 years in Athens. I've actually kept it as base camp. I've explored all the Balkans, former Yugoslavia. I did all the way up to Nordkap, and then I did all of Eastern Europe, all the way to Caspian Sea, to Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia, and all that. And but when I had this opportunity to film a show, we filmed actually the pilot episode in Baja, and I needed a bike, and it needed to be. Yeah.
So you gotta do it.
So I had to find one that looked just like it, and then I had to convince.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I got I had Al Jesse got me set up with bags, and it looks pretty close. I made it look. I have a custom exhaust on the real one, and things like that. But BMW has done some weird things marketing. You've been over there in Germany. The Germans have interesting ways of doing things. Where mine's an F650 GS Dakar. Both of them are.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
It's the single. Mine's got the Rotax. Now I don't think does yours have a Rotax? Because they changed.
It does. It has the Rotax 650, but I think they moved the assembly plant to India or China. I think it was
Taiwan. I think, or maybe
built in Germany, and then they moved the assembly plant.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, because you could have gone with the twin, in your first motorcycle, meaning what's called.
True.
Then I don't even
F650.
Yeah.
I don't get it either.
Yeah, I just it always is confusing. But anyway, so you guys are essentially riding my bike, because the frame is exactly the same, the engine's the same.
Yeah.
The Sertao is the little bit bigger, a little bit heavier shock, and the 21-inch front wheel.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
So. But I like the fact that here you are. You've ridden in a tough rally. You've done a bit of adventuring. You did 9 days in Baja, as we talked about. You don't want the big bike.
AZBDR as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our first off-road adventure was the AZBDR together, and that was rough, but we got through it together, and
Yeah.
All those helped build up. I think between the AZBDR and Baja and Iceland, all those things culminated to prepare us for, I think, around the world trip, at least to start it and feel confident that we're ready to do it.
Yeah. So now that you're 2 weeks into a around the world trip, you thought you'd be
exactly.
2 weeks, right? And you thought you'd be a lot further along. How's your psyche? How's your mental? What day did you actually lock down?
So we started on March 2nd, and then we started traveling, and then we got locked down on the 15th of March.
15th of March.
Yeah.
13 days.
13 days.
2 weeks.
So how's your mindset? I mean, Spain's not a bad place. Let's not,
No. We have amazing. Our host is amazing. Her whole family and
totally takes care of us.
And we've had a great time here in lockdown.
We won the lottery. If you could find a place that you just had to be stuck and locked down, like southern Spain, in a beautiful home where hostess takes care of you with a courtyard with fresh oranges and lemons and beautiful weather, we lucked out.
We did.
So how far are you from Sevilla or Jerez?
We haven't gone through there yet, but the closest, biggest city is probably Valencia.
Valencia, okay.
Yeah, so we're just
south.
We're just southwest of Valencia.
So I'm trying to put
right on the coast.
Yeah, I haven't ridden actually in a motorcycle in Spain, but I've traveled with four wheels overland in Spain, in southern Spain. I still haven't been to the. And there's a town. I mean, are you a fan of the jamón de Ibérico de Bellota? Do you know what I'm talking about?
We don't.
Okay, so this is
Please.
this is
You
like
got us curious.
Yeah, I
though.
know, right?
okay, so I'm the food and the wine guy now, as well as
sure.
riding all that. So jamón, ham, and it's like a prosciutto, so it's a air dried, salted. But there's a pig that is a fetid pig in Spain. It's got a black foot, and it roams around, and there are these pata negra, and it eats its diet is strictly these acorns. So it's a field of acorns where they go, and because of this diet, it gives this it gives them actually some really good nutritional properties as well with omega-3 and blah blah blah. But it is the most glorious if you like that. That really thinly sliced like prosciutto. But this is, for so long you couldn't even get it in the U.S. It was actually banned here for stupid reasons that make no sense.
Yeah.
But so the headquarters of this is a place called Jabuco, Jabuco. So if you look at that and you're within a day's ride, go to Jabuco, hang out there, dine, and just go, dig into this amazing. Because over here it's like $100 a pound. I'm not kidding.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to miss that opportunity.
No, and there's various levels. Like the one that's like jamón de Ibérico de Bellota, and Bellota is ball, like acorn, and that's these particular pigs. But this is a tiny, not a big town, a little village, and then as it went elsewhere in Spain, in the windows, they've got the hams hanging, they've got them on those nice racks where they can slice it. I'm sure probably your hosts have that. If not, they know what we're talking about. But amazing, and you're in a great wine region as well. So particularly
we are. Yeah, we've been traveling through the wine country.
Yeah.
This last week we rode portion of the TET, the Trans-Euro Trail.
Okay.
It rides through North Murcia, and it was definitely wine country. Vineyards, beautiful vineyards everywhere in that part of the region.
Beautiful Grenache, Garnacha as they call it there. Oh, yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's the photo you sent me. Was that on that Trans-European trail? That was.
Yeah, I think we're a little further south. The photo I sent you.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
Road just like that. Gorgeous gravel roads with beautiful scenery.
Beautiful. My kind of roads with nobody around hardly, huh?
Yeah.
So,
it made us grateful that we're riding adventure bikes so we can experience that.
Yeah.
Versus a touring bike or something.
Exactly. So, but you're doing okay. You've got a great host, and every once in a while it takes something. Like when I was riding in South Africa, I was talking before we started the official podcast here with Ronnie, who's been a guest on my webcast. Sometimes you need to be forced to slow down, and I don't want to be so cliche and smell the roses, but smell the roses. Why not? Smell the Jabuco or the vineyards. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's also made us realize that maybe we planned a lot. We planned to see almost every country in Europe in like 8 months, and that's a lot.
Too much.
Yeah.
So just coming here has made us realize like maybe. And it's something maybe we can talk about with you as well. But having a home base is especially hard for an American because, as you know, we're only allowed 6 months for the Schengen, and Schengen is I think 26 different countries. That's a lot of countries, and makes it very difficult unless you're in the Balkans to experience Europe in one trip. You just can't do it.
Yeah. No. You have to. You have to commit to, well, of course, with 6 months, you either have to just say, I forgot, I didn't know that. And
well, I guess it's actually only 90 days, technically, right?
Technically, you're right.
Out of 6 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's, I mean, essentially, that's what I've been doing for the last, let's see, I did China, I think, in 2015. And then I've been in Europe since 2016, so the last 3 years, basically doing 3 to 4 months. I think last year I was closer to almost 4 months, and then leaving the bike there. And they
haven't kicked you out yet, huh?
No, the it's the green card, you know. Do they look at that and see when the expiration date is on that thing? And that's the thing, because my green card was set for 90 days. But
Okay.
fortunately,
Yeah. For sure.
And some of the countries I went in, they, I feel like it's a little bit of extortion, like in North Macedonia, Kosovo. Those two countries forced me to buy, even though I was only going to be in those countries for less than a week. Forced me to spend 50, 70 euro for insurance.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's then the plan now? You're things are easing up. Spain, is it? Tell us about how Spain's moved. How have they handled? I know they had a big spike about a month and a half ago in terms of the COVID. But how are they doing, and how is it coming along? Are restaurants open? Are the wineries open?
It's so it was pretty difficult. I'd say for at least 2 months we were pretty much in a quarantine. It wasn't until early May that actually citizens could go outside for walks.
Yeah, I mean they were pretty locked. They were giving fines out for if you weren't out for the wrong reason.
Minimum fine is 601 euros if you were out for a reason other than. So the only reasons you could be outside was if you were an essential worker, which include usually you had a note from your employer that you could show the police. If you were going for a market run, which you could only do one person, you couldn't go together. No. Cars could only have one person in them. You couldn't travel together. And then if you had to go to the pharmacy or emergencies, those are the only reasons you would be outside. They made some leniency for walking your dogs. So there's plenty of jokes about dogs going for 100 walks in one day, because
and they're saying no more, please.
The neighborhood just wanted to take their dogs so they go outside. But up until May, you couldn't actually go outside. So and then they scheduled time frames for individuals to go outside. So adults had a time frame, elderly had a time frame, children had a time frame. And then,
but the kids had to go out with only one adult.
Yeah, so they did that for 2 weeks, and then they reached phase 1. And then phase 1, which was about a month ago, was when things started loosening them up. So once phase 1 was available, then we could get on our motorcycles and travel together. And sure enough, the first day that we were able to do that, we went on a motorcycle trip together and loved every minute of it. Yeah, every second of it.
Well,
and then on Monday, we actually are leaving the region, so.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so tell me now, where do we go from here, and for how long, and what do you expect to...
Well, so Spain, I feel Spain's been pretty generous when it comes to other countries. Other countries have said that their citizens that are trapped in the country for COVID-19, you must, if you had an expiration, they've given you kind of a window which you need to leave the country. Spain has actually been generous enough to say, all right, the state of alarm ends on the 21st. We're allotting everybody 3 months, 90 days from that date. So in a sense, it actually gave us another 90 days for free. We didn't have to do any paperwork. We didn't have to go to a consulate. Everybody is granted that had an expired 90-day visa. So that's a blessing. The problem is that's only recognized in Spain. But Spain's a beautiful country, and you could easily spend 90 days enjoying Spain, and I think that's what we're we're kind of relying on that.
Yeah.
And then maybe head into the UK to recharge our.
Yeah.
We
might take a ferry from Spain to the UK.
Yeah.
From the okay. I mean, as you know, as I've traveled all through that region, particularly in the EU countries. And I don't know, maybe with COVID, they're actually actively, but you cross from border to border, nobody's looking at any.
They don't care.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Right. As long as we leave from Spain.
That's the case for sure.
And I also think most of those are these 90-day or are something that they look at airports. You're on a motorcycle,
yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And are your bikes plated in Germany, or are they plated in U.S.?
The States.
Nice.
So they were, when we lived in Germany, they were plated in Germany. So our German bikes had returned to the fatherland for a little while.
Okay.
But most recently they've been replated. We kept our registration and they're Florida registered.
Florida registered. Well, this is a good thing too, because you know how they have those cameras all the time. So if you happen to be going a little bit fast, don't worry, nobody's going to mail you a ticket.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly.
So
you probably wouldn't get there for a year or something if it did.
Yeah, no. Fair share of those in Germany.
Yeah, trust me. I in Norway, I think I probably had the camera take a picture of me 100 times. And that's 4 years ago. So yeah, no issues there. So I think you're good.
Is here?
It's California.
It's California.
Yeah.
WorldRider plate.
Yeah, the WorldRider plate. Yeah.
I love it.
It's so great if you one of my biggest the adage that says that you don't really regret what you do, you only regret what you don't do. And one of my regrets in my time in Spain, and this kind of brings me a whole full circle. I'll tell you about my dilemma, but is I never got to the Basque Country, San Sebastian up there, which if you're at all into experiencing some of probably the best food in Europe. And again, I haven't, I just know this but that is an incredible part of Spain, and it's got its own set of issues, but the separatists as they were, but it's still a rich culture. Mm-hmm. Spain is so, yeah. And you guys speak a little Spanish? You must by now, right?
Muy pequeño.
I've been studying Spanish.
Mi español es pobre.
Es importante para practicar porque hay mucha gente en los países que hablan en español.
Sí.
We need him to
I
come
could
with us.
say 94 for the gasolina.
Gasolina. This is true. Okay, so cool. So you'll spend some time in Spain, man. Well, definitely you're going to go to Jabuco then for sure.
For sure.
And Barcelona is what I think was one of the most over-touristed parts of Europe, but I bet you right now you will have such a opportunity to see it with no tourists. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to Barcelona just on a typical vacation as tourists, not as travelers.
Yeah.
And we experienced that exact same thing, over tourism for sure.
Yeah, so it's
everything that says Gaudi on it was completely over tourism.
Yeah, exactly, and the Bocaria, But now you could go back and actually probably see it in a whole different light, for sure, because it is.
Sure.
So the real question now, because you lived in San Diego for a long time. You guys were married here. You feel this is part of your history, your legacy. The real question is, though, you've got that G650 Dakar. How much different is that than riding and piloting a submarine, a nuclear-powered submarine?
Oh, yeah. Wow. I mean, I think on a submarine, it's a culmination of all of the sailors that make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, in many cases, as the nuclear engineers, and my specialty was electricity, so we focus on the electrical power portions, and everybody has their responsibility. 112 people, and they make the mission work. So, because I was engineering, I didn't actually have the watch position of piloting the boat, helmsman or planesman. That was a different responsibility. Sure. Ours was just to keep the screw spinning and keep power for the ship.
Wow.
Okay, so they did a 3-hour tour. I was able to go on that 3-hour tour, and I did drive it. So I did.
Wow.
I did get to drive it with the stick. And the thing is, there's no visibility. All you see is a panel of screens. I mean, of all these little dials and digits.
And dots.
You don't even know where you're going.
So were you submerged?
It was a 3-hour tour than Gilligan's Island.
Exactly.
I have.
We came back, so we were fine.
So were you? Did you submerge or were you surface?
No, we were submerged.
Yeah,
Submerged.
you were submerged.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's fun because then, like, I think they still do it, but they have family events where sometimes the family can come on board and you can share and experience what it's like to be on a submarine, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
So the and this is not, I'm not trying to get into a political discussion, but as a career sailor in the Navy, the captain on, was it the Theodore Roosevelt? I'm trying to remember which was the
for sure,
where the commander, he ultimately was let go. I mean, it did get a lot of political, and there was a mixture. But what did you feel when you saw that? I'm sure you saw the video. We all did as he left the ship, and the amount of the cheers and the you could just see the support and the frankly love for this captain.
For sure. I mean, that's definitely what I got out of it. Like, you work with quite a lot of people in the military, and many of them are exceptional leaders, and they would rate that same kind of camaraderie that you would give, especially under circumstances and leaving. But like you said, clearly he was a leader amongst his sailors.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And his, from the way I get it, again through the news and what I read is his interest first was the sailors. And I think. There was some news about this today, but it flashed on my screen before we got on the call. But there's some breaking news on this topic. I don't know exactly what that is, but
I think like you said though, like that's leadership 101. When as soon as you become a naval officer, you kind of get that as well. Like the biggest thing is take care of your sailors, and your sailors will take care of you.
Yeah.
I think you can use that. CEOs could use that. Supervisors could use that. I mean, that's world renowned across all different nationalities.
Yeah. This is standard military discipline. Not discipline. I mean, meaning not discipline in just the decorum. Decorum, I guess, is a better word.
Sure. Yeah. Take care of people.
Take care of people, right? I mean, this is what it is. Sure. So what if you didn't get locked down, and you're cruising through Spain, you're almost over there to the Gibraltar, you're ready to pop over to Morocco. What was going to be your plan? Going to Morocco, were you going to go to Morocco and then circle back to Europe, or were you going to continue through Africa?
Yeah, for sure. We were going to spend. So our plan was to go to countries that would minimize our 90-day Schengen footprint. Yeah. So Morocco was one of those. UK was one of those.
Yeah.
So spend as much time in those individual countries as we could to then reset to have a solid 2 months to travel Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then once we were done with Scandinavia, our 90 days was going to be up again, and then we were going to spend time in Belarus, Ukraine, and then, as you know, once you're in the Balkans, you're pretty much home free from the 90-day Schengen requirement.
Yeah. This is a great thing, and people that are listening to the podcast always. Wonder, like you've made a decision to now travel. Do you still have a home in the States?
No, we committed to this. We have a storage unit.
At my mom's house.
We have a cargo container.
Okay, you've got a cargo container. There you go.
Yeah. Yes. We're pretty used to it though, Alan. Like when we lived in San Diego, most of the time we lived on a sailboat.
For 11 years.
So we were used to that kind of lifestyle where everything's self-contained and minimalist. When we moved to Germany, that was kind of the first time we were in a home in 11 years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
11 years on the boat.
So we lived on a sailboat for 11 years.
So you raised your children on a boat?
We did.
Pretty much, yeah, since they were like 5, I guess.
Did you
we traveled up and down the coast of California.
Those poor kids. When I was in Aswan in Egypt, I met a couple and their 10-year-old, 9-year-old boy. They were from the UK, and they had been traveling for 5 years on a sailboat with the boy since he was 5 or 4. And
no different.
It was, they were obviously homeschooling him, and I guess you couldn't homeschool him; you'd be boat schooling him.
Boat school. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Boat schooling, and God, what a great kid, and just a real interesting couple. So, yeah, so you were docked here in San Diego on a boat and cruising, out to
Yeah.
Catalina, up to the Channel Islands.
Coronado Island.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Coronado.
We
Oh,
lived
at Coronado. Yep.
In
we
Coronado,
lived
yeah.
on Shelter Island over there.
Yeah. Wow, how cool is that? So you're used to this. So people always want to know about budget. Now, obviously, you're retired. What do you feel this will cost you? On a monthly or an annual basis to be traveling.
We budgeted. We tried to keep our budget in Europe. It's tricky because each country is very different.
Sure, of
Right.
course.
But we tried, and again, we're on two motorcycles, so we're buying
2-gallon
twice
fuel.
the amount of fuel.
Yep.
As a single person. We're twice the amount of fees for shipping the bikes. We have to pay twice the amount for ferries.
Yep.
But there's other advantages to riding, I think, two separate bikes.
I have spare parts for him. Oh, no, he has spare parts for me.
You can tow me around when I break.
This is true. Having the same bike, you can
Yeah.
swap
towed
parts.
We only have to carry one spare part.
Yeah.
She towed me about 12 kilometers in Iceland.
I did, yeah.
Oh,
To
really?
get
With the tow rope,
to
yeah.
get a sprocket welded. That was the closest welder was about 12 kilometers. And
Yep.
she towed me there, so it worked.
Wow, that is not easy. I can tell you what, towing on a motorcycle is
Right.
not for the faint of heart because it's
No.
um
We saw a YouTube video, but we actually never practiced it in real life, and then until that opportunity, and we were fine. I think we only got it snagged up on one turn. One turn didn't turn out very well at all,
What?
but other than that, we were fine.
so you're so new, but you've been obviously, you've been on your Royal Enfield, you've done a lot of other riding. How many times have each of you dropped?
It's so I can't even count that high.
That first few weeks when I learned how to ride it, I'm sure it was probably over my hands count.
We made the joke. We almost made the joke that we wanted to put in our bio that we wanted to drop our bikes in every country in the world. That's pretty much. I think we've done that in most cases.
Uh-huh.
We've definitely dropped it already in Spain because we went on the Trans-Euro Trail. We dropped it twice.
Okay.
We drop it at slow speeds.
Yeah, I
Slow
was gonna.
speeds. We haven't dropped it at
So
high speeds yet.
So one of the terms I used if somebody asks me that question, there's two different kinds of drops. There's what I call a parking violation, and that is basically a slow moving. You just are
Sure.
it's
Doesn't
a balance,
park
and
you
then
back.
there's a real drop, and parking violations don't necessarily count. Qualify. I'll never forget. I was loaded to bear. I was up in Seattle, and I was back when they had restaurants that people could crowd around. Remember those days? And there's a street that has all these cafes with umbrellas and people sitting out, and I'm supposed to be meeting some friends there.
Of course,
and I'm gonna park, and right in front of this, I just dropped this massive, overloaded bike.
Yeah. Oh, look at this guy just dropped his bike with a WorldRider plate on it. What?
Yeah. This guy he's a poser, man.
Yeah. he's on his BMW GS.
And he's just going to go to
He's
the coffee
dumped
shop and Starbucks.
Yeah. Oh Lord. So Chantil,
I guess back to your question on finances. So
Yeah,
for
that's right.
Europe we considered about 100 a day
100 a day for both of
for
you.
the two of us.
Okay.
And I think talking to other, we did a lot of research on this because we wanted to make sure that one, we could afford just to travel full time, and although we saved a lot of money for this adventure,
Mhm.
I mean that's a finite amount of money.
Sure.
So for Europe, that's what we planned. I think Scandinavia would be higher for sure.
Yeah.
But I think in general,
$10
$100
a
month
beer
for a couple on a motor, or 100 a day for a couple on a motorcycle. So there's so many different things. That's if you're traveling, I would say an average of 200 to 300 kilometers a day, or in the case of 215 miles. I mean, if you slow down, you're saving money. our money, we've spent a lot less money since coronavirus.
Yeah.
We're not buying any gas.
And we're not. Our bikes aren't breaking down. Well, okay, maybe.
We're not eating out at restaurants.
No.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's funny.
if you slow down, you could save a lot of money, I think.
Yeah.
But then you have the time issue.
But you have the time issue, and you eventually have to go and go from A to B. So it may be a bit of a fallacy. But I met. It's funny because when I was in Mexico, I met a couple from Australia. There were two up on a V-Strom, and we kept in communication. Then when I was in Africa, like 2 months after I'd been cruising around South Africa, or maybe it was a month, they had shipped their bikes from South America, and I met them again in Africa.
Yeah. Small world, right?
Yeah, really
Small
crazy.
world.
And what's interesting, they had that same notion though. He used to say, well, if we slow down, we save money. And I was like, I always tried to think that I go slow anyway, but they took it to an extreme. Like they would be doing what you're doing by choice, not by force, in terms of staying 2 months somewhere.
3 months in a place.
Admittedly, 3 months in Murcia is a little long.
It's a little long. Chantil, people on the podcast, women on the podcast, you chose not to go. As I said, the Australian couple were 2 up, so you chose, to ride the bike and not be, pillion, with Travis. So, what do you recommend for women that may be hesitant to, and this could be just somebody's just maybe buying a bike in their San Diego or even a scooter, not necessarily just to travel the world, because I think some women have a bit of a hesitance. What would you say?
I'm telling you, it's scarier on the back.
Yeah,
and he won't even get on the back of mine. So
I think being a pillion is one of the most frightening things I've ever done in my life. So,
I'm going to agree with that.
So, all the pillions I see, I always say you are the brave one out of the group here for sure.
Okay, so first when I started riding, I felt that the 650 was a huge bike for me. I kept trying. I think this is too big a bike for me. And he's like, just give it time, right? And so I kept riding it, and I kept learning new things, watching videos, and I went to a couple of off-road classes. Just classes in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I got familiar with the bike, and it just feels so. It's like one with me now. Like before, I was tightening my muscles and I was cringing, but now I feel a lot more at ease with the bike, and I feel it's part of me instead of. But once that connection comes, it's so much more enjoyable on the bike than in before. So my say is just go out there and get on it and try it and just start relaxing and enjoying where you're at.
And here's not a technical, but a fitting question. So can you put both your feet flat on the ground on your bike?
No.
No. Okay.
I tippy toe.
Tippy toe. Yeah, I can't either.
That's one of the major reasons we looked into G650 is because it, as an adventure bike, it had one of the lower seat heights out of all of them.
Yeah.
But I've learned too. I can ride Travis's bike, but I have to slide off the side when I stop when I stop.
Yeah, you kind of have to. Yeah, and mine, I've got
a little shift.
I've got a bit. Yeah, me too. I've got a beefier spring, so mine's even higher than the normal Dakar because I am usually, although I've learned, as I'm sure Travis has learned, but you guys were in a boat. But I when I first set off, I packed way too much crap. Way too much.
Yeah.
I'm sure we do too. But
I think everybody does that.
Yeah.
It's pretty common. Yeah.
And common. I've gotten better, but I do carry. I carry a laptop. I carry a DSLR, 3 lenses, extra hard drives. There's this whole technology component. As I was, as we were getting the tech up on this podcast today, but And Travis, for a would-be guy going into retirement, everybody dreams of, they go out and they buy a GS 1200 Adventure of all things, and they do like to go to the coffee shop for sure. But
oh no.
but for those who really,
you're gonna plummet on this podcast.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's okay. Remember. Sell the dream, live the dream.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Live the dream.
You know, but for somebody to make that decision, you have a bit of an advantage now that I've learned more about you here on the podcast. And I can't wait till I see you guys face to face. But you know, living on a boat, you know, you do understand that sense of impermanence and motion. But for some would-be adventurer that, you know, maybe just wants to tour Europe, maybe doesn't really want to around the world, what advice would you give somebody in making that decision?
Well, for me, so I guess the difference for me is we bought a used G650. They were about 3 or 4 years old when we bought them. Both of them had about 10,000 miles on them. I think for us, like, you could buy 2 motorcycles and a lot of gas and a lot of adventure and a lot of memories for the cost of buying one 1200 GS. Like, to me, that's the difference.
Get out there
And the people I've met that drive a 1200 GS, they're great bikes in a sense. Like, I don't think there's a more comfortable adventure bike, especially for carving through some beautiful Swiss Canyon or something like that, right?
Sure.
Super comfortable bikes, plenty of power, great for the Autobahn, great for getting places, but they're expensive. And
Yeah.
I guess my advice would be, hey, look at buying, or just go with what you have. And I mean, there's plenty of people that make adventure out of riding Honda Cubs around, or
Honda Ruckus.
yeah, for that matter, right? Like, millions and millions of Honda Cubs are out there,
Yeah.
and people are riding those all over the place.
Yeah,
So I guess my advice would be, you don't have to buy into the marketing image
Yeah.
that wants to sell you a big adventure bike in order to have wonderful memories.
Mm.
I mean, yeah.
It's about the memories.
It's about the memories. And what about just regardless of bike or not, it's almost that that mindset that you have to decide to unplug a bit and go for long-term travel, regardless of whether you're on a Cub or you're on a 1200 or 650 or a KTM, whatever. It's a decision you have to make that is probably harder than determining what kind of bike you're on.
Yeah. I mean, if I had the time, I think we would have a ton of fun riding Honda 50cc Ruckuses around the United States. That'd be a great time.
That would be a great adventure, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. There's a guy that took his 2-up on a Honda Ruckus 50cc scooter, and he rode the Trans-America Trail.
Incredible.
And he's got a wonderful YouTube channel, and it looks like he has a ton of fun for a scooter that probably didn't cost him more than $1,500.
Right.
Yeah. So
I met a guy in Uruguay that was on a what's the Italian scooter? My brain.
Vespa?
Yeah, he was
Vespa.
on literally a 50cc Vespa, and he was traveling around the world.
Yeah.
God bless him. You know, it's not. And then of course, I'm sure you've met the bicyclists. I met a guy from Finland who eventually stayed with me in my house for a couple weeks, who traveled on a bicycle for 4 years around the world.
I love the bicyclists. I love running across them, because in Iceland we were having the most miserable time with 4 solid days of
Cold,
rain in the West Fjords, and then we would pass a bicyclist
And we're like,
dealing with the same thing we were dealing. We're like, it's not that bad.
it's not that. We can do it. We can do it. Let's
I'm
keep going.
plugged in. I got 12-volt heated jacket that I'm currently using. It's not that bad.
So that brings up a good point. So how often? I mean, obviously you're bringing camping equipment, right, with you. That's part of your kit. How many days do you think in your plan that you will be camping versus staying in a guest house or with somebody or in a hotel? Or
we wanted to camp like 2/3 of the time.
2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of our minimum. If we could camp longer, that would be great. If you actually look at what we pack on our bike, admittedly, camping gear is probably one of the largest bags we have.
Yeah.
And it's the best sleeping you can get. So
yeah, it's a very thick mattress pad, a very, very comfortable sleeping bag.
It's so nice. That's going to take up a lot of our space, but It's worth it when you camp in the
minimalists would look at it and be like, come on, man, you don't need all that stuff. But
you do for a good night rest.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Well, sleeping is definitely not overrated.
No,
Yes.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So we feel like we want a good night's sleep. My personal view is it's almost a safety concern too. And the next day when
Right.
you're groggy and you're miserable, and
Yeah.
And you had a rough night.
yeah,
So it's better to get a good night's sleep and then ride the next day. So
Yeah.
that's my view. So that was our plan, but COVID changed everything. Campsites aren't open. We're probably going to spend more time in guest homes, Airbnbs, and
at
places
least
like
for
that.
at least for a little bit until
Yeah.
things start opening up more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realized after doing my original Scandinavian and Eastern European tour, coming from that first from Iceland onward, where I carried all my camping gear, and I camped quite a bit in Iceland actually, but and some in Norway, but as I came through some of those countries, the guest houses and the little hotels, the pensions as they'd say there in Spain, are so cheap. And
cheap.
Yeah.
and
yeah.
I as I was
Compared to America.
yeah, and as I was going through the and I'm working on a new book and I'm making appointments with people as I'm thinking I'm of doing interviews. I really struggled in when I returned to Europe. It was the first or second time I think I just looked at that camping gear like you said it, and I just said, you know what? For as much as I camped, I am just not going to bring it, which just forced me into like, okay, I'm going to have to pay the money there. But then, for me, the time spent setting up, and that's not so bad because setting up is easy, but it's the unpacking. If especially if it gets wet,
for sure. Yeah.
The wet packing in the morning.
Packing a wet tent sucks.
Yes,
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So I resolved to that. So for the last 2 years, I did not bring my camping equipment and my cooking kit and all of that stuff. That if I was going in Africa or in South America, I'd want that stuff. But even in South America, it's so cheap. It's sometimes the $12 for a room with breakfast, or set up my tent and pick it up and get $12. I'll do it. Yeah.
$12.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
the GS would like it because that'd be about 18, 20 pounds less.
yeah, exactly.
That's substantial. That's substantial weight on a motorcycle.
It is.
I mean, the nice thing about the GS, as you know, like its subframe is very. I mean, it's a stout bike. It could take a lot of weight. That's part of the reason we love it. Is we're easily only giving it like a third of its capacity.
Yeah.
Riding one up on it.
Yeah, I read once it was 800 pounds. Like you
Yeah,
sit on
so,
it.
yeah.
I mean, that's rider gear.
Rider and
everything,
gear.
so-
I one time went across one of these way stations when I first came back from my original big trip,
Yeah.
and I went in and and cozied up with the officers and weighed the bike with me on it, and I think I just had gone over like it was 604 or something like that. And,
Yeah.
So that's that's not with me on it. So add another
No,
100.
without you on it. That was just your gear.
That was just
the
the
bike
bike.
is like 440.
Yep.
Yeah.
440. So I was, 150 pounds or so, and then I weigh about 150.
Yeah.
So that would be putting it at 750.
Yeah.
But I'm lighter than that now for sure. But I kind of looked at that and was like, okay, a little reality set in, because you're always, trying to, figure out how, okay, I'm weighing this on the scale with this bag, trying to figure out really what is my kit weighing.
Sure.
Well,
I mean, there's plenty of good. I mean, there's some great insight to ultra minimalists that just travel light, especially if you're traveling like a bunch of BDR or type roads.
Yeah.
Then for sure, you don't want that weight.
Yeah.
That weight is just going to make it miserable.
Yeah, and there's two different. If you're going to go on that kind of trip, that's great. For me, part of it is cultural history, experience, and people. Mostly it's, I love the people, as you guys know right there. Having found a great host in your guest house, it's, you could.
Yeah, Maria's off.
You'll never remember that great museum, that architecture, that cathedral, or even that crazy road unless you dropped it. you probably remember the people more you'll remember than most
True.
else.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why I travel, is to really get to know people.
The real
And
people.
the real people, local people, the people that will invite you into their home, and you don't need the hotel or the tent. It's like, here, stay with us, here's our guest house. Or, I had one time stayed at somewhere and it was their kid's room, and I looked at the kid. It's like, I can sleep on the couch. No, the kid will sleep on the couch,
Yeah.
It's people are so warm, but it's like, oh, I don't need that. But you can't say no in those cases. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Any last words of wisdom for yourself that you would say, I wish I could have told myself this in 2015 when I first bought the motorcycle, that you've learned now?
I kind of wish we started earlier. I mean, for me, we didn't discover motorcycling until well into our mid 40s.
Right.
So what are we, 44 when we started? Admittedly, I had a lot of experience with 4-wheel drive vehicles.
Sure.
We would go on these Jeep excursions. We'd make our yearly pilgrimage to the Moab and experience all that, especially in Southern California.
Yeah.
We were part of an Xterra group, a 4-wheel drive group, and I remember seeing all these people on motorcycles and being like, they're crazy, man.
They're getting dirt in their teeth.
Yeah, they get dirt in their teeth. Like, here I am in my air-conditioned
vehicle.
cocoon of a vehicle.
And they have tons of gear on. Oh my goodness, it sounds miserable.
Yeah.
And there we go and change.
But then I was kind of getting, we got to the point where in the 4-wheel drive that we either had to build an extreme off-road buggy to do some of the stuff that before used to be challenging, was kind of mundane. And then for us, discovering adventure motorcycling made all of that fresh again. It was all the trails were completely different on 2 wheels.
Yeah.
You can choose your line, and you can.
Yeah, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
So I wish maybe we'd done it younger, but at the same time, I think that makes our story unique because we can share that with other people and say, hey, we didn't have a lot of experience, right? We were complete knuckleheads, and we somehow survived riding our 2 motorcycles through Arizona backcountry discovery route. Somehow we survived 9 days in Baja, dumping it in deep sand 30 times. Who knows how many times? But in all, if we can do it, if 2 knuckleheads like us can do it with not much experience, then anybody can do it.
Yeah, if you have the passion, and go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen to that.
There's so many people doing it now too. So just find somebody to latch on and
ask them questions, because we've sent out a whole bunch of invites. I mean, just hey, can you give us some advice?
Yeah.
What advice do you have to give us? And
for sure.
And a lot of people have responded back, which is really cool. I mean, they're out there and they're normal people, and they're just doing their dream, and they're willing to share.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that the motorcycle community, the overlander, long-term riders, are so friendly and willing to share. Nobody has any proprietary, no, I'm not gonna my secrets. Nobody has that.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that's silly. And I get quite a bit of email from people with these same kinds of questions, and provided that doesn't get below the fold, I always respond, and never do I intentionally miss something unless it gets lost. So, and I always say to people that if you write out to any motorcyclist or me, if they don't get back to you in a certain time, don't be afraid and think that you're going to be a pest, because sometimes we just miss it, for sure.
Yeah.
And that goes for all of the riders out there, and that's
For
the beautiful
sure.
thing.
For sure.
Well, Go ahead.
Go ahead, yeah.
No.
Yeah, we're just trying to, like you said, we just started, so our advice on world travel is obviously somewhat limited until we get some countries under our belt. But I think, if again, we're open to any questions if people have it. I think the biggest thing is just starting. For us, we made a commitment to, hey, this is the date we're going to do it. And the hardest part is just committing to that date and pushing the motorcycle out the garage door and making it happen.
Yeah. That's and I was going to say the same thing. It's the hardest decision is deciding to do it, and the rest of it, and coming back to, as I said at the beginning, we don't ever regret what we do. Mostly, we regret what we don't do, and that is great advice for anybody. Take a trip. I mean, I'm a solo rider. I love to travel. The reason I go by myself is, as I said before, people are my motivation, and that's the beauty. So regardless if you're going to go, with a friend, with a partner, or solo, take a small trip right out of your backyard. It's amazing what you will find, and don't go. There's another rider you probably know, Ryan Pyle. He did the extreme or tough rides. He's done Brazil, China. A friend of mine, and great TV show. He does extreme treks, and he says, I want to be uncomfortable, and when you're a bit uncomfortable is when you really start to feel like, okay, now I'm learning something about myself and about the world, and I'm putting myself. I'm really open, and being open is one thing that motorcycle riding, especially long term, kind of forces you into, because you are exposed and that. Yeah,
for sure.
I can't believe we've been talking over an hour now, and this is the thing whenever you get people, motorcyclists together, and I know it's they eat late in Spain, right? I mean, it's what time is it there?
Yeah, it's 10:30 now.
It's 10:30. It's about time to eat dinner. I mean,
yes, exactly.
It's so true though. They do eat so late,
especially on a Friday. For sure.
Yeah, I remember being in Argentina in really in a tiny town in Patagonia, and I was in a restaurant, and it was late, and it was like 11:30, and maybe 11 I got there, and it was like only 2 or 3 other customers. By midnight, the place was full, and people bringing in infants and 2-year-olds.
So true. Yeah. So, totally true.
It's funny.
Yeah. The sleep schedule over here is a little different.
Right.
Yeah.
We're adjusting though. I think as the weather gets hotter, we're definitely going to embrace the siesta.
Yeah.
Napping is a great thing. Yes.
And it happens here. I mean, it's amazing. Like people will be from 2 to 5.
2
it's
to
like
5:30,
empty.
nothing.
Everything's closed. If you wanted to find that welder.
They're all... It's amazing.
So, when in Spain, do as the Spaniards do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you were in a great part of the the Iberian Peninsula. It's good, and if you can, when you get up north, if you do go to the Basque Country, but then scoot further west and go into northern Portugal and the Douro region, along that river. There's beautiful roads. You would love that. As I'm sure you've probably spent more time.
We have quite a few dots.
Yes, browsing the internet and looking at photos, reading blogs, doing all that.
Yeah.
Well,
every
Travis,
time we see something like that, we just add a little dot to our Google map.
Yeah.
I think we started this like 3 years ago. We have over 660 little dots that
my God.
like to visit.
Well, good thing you've got that military training and that engineering background, because you could keep track and figure a plan for that. That that would make me go
optimize the route.
Yeah. Well, now you've got another one, Habuco, and I will look forward to the update and what you think of this. This incredible little town, and then the food, and especially that jamon. Well, I really appreciate.
We're tracking our trips, so anybody can keep tabs on us.
Oh yeah, how do we get a hold of you? What? Sure. It's Viajar Moto.
Yeah, so I think the reason we chose the name is, I guess, is one of our stickers.
Oh, nice.
So the reason we chose the name is because Baja was the first country we visited outside the U.S.
Yep.
And we figured, traveling the world is all about the culture, people, languages. So we chose something that was Spanish.
Yeah. So viajar means travel in Spanish. So.
Yep. Yeah. Moto travel.
By moto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Viajar Moto.
WorldRider was already taken. We were looking for that one.
Yeah, I know. People still say, "How did you get that, man? How did you get that?" Oh, well,
Yeah.
I
Start early enough, right?
start dreaming early. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the thing. There's a story that not a lot of people know. I don't even think I wrote about it in my book. I'm trying to remember. But I was going to originally leave a year earlier than I did, and I had my 650. Before I had the Dakar, I actually had just the regular F650, and
Yeah.
I was working. I kind of was in this flux area between my I had ran my own company and had built it up, and crazy things happened, and I decided I really loved Apple equipment and the Apple store in my hometown. I said, I could work 4 hours a week at the Apple store, and just to be talking to people about the Apple brand and stuff. So I actually worked at the Apple store as a retail employee. For nothing. Minimum wage, and then they're not commissioned or anything. But I just, I didn't. It was a way to be out and talk to people. I never really worked retail like that. So long story short, I was leaving the Apple store one day, and I was like feeling good. I was on my bike, and there's this turn off the Coast Highway. I was in Newport Beach where I lived, in this great banking turn, and I just really leaned into it. And either there was sand or oil on the road, and I crashed. And I came down and broke my wrist. This wrist, there's a brace in there, and that was the year I was gonna leave. And I just couldn't, because it wasn't. And that forced me actually to reevaluate the bike, and I ended up changing and getting the Dakar. I mean, the bike was fine. It got a couple scratches, but I did change bikes.
They're tough bikes.
Yeah, they are tough bikes.
He just gave us hope,
Yeah.
After, he was going to travel a year earlier, and we were going to travel, and then we got stopped, and so now we have hope. We can still go.
I mean, we're pretty positive now, because we know Monday we're leaving with the region, and we're traveling again, but there was some days of depression where you're like, man, are we ever going to be able to travel again?
We might as well just sleep through this whole time.
Yeah.
You have to battle that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've talked to quite a few people on the webcast that I've been doing, motorcyclists, as well as just adventurers, hikers, and even some winemakers that have been on, who have had I call it journeys. So the journey you're on, wherever it is, we're on a journey of life, and decisions we make, forks in the road that
perfect.
So and you probably know Jeremy Craker and Elle West. I had them on the webcast over a month and a half. They're still stuck in Uruguay. They've been there.
Yeah. Okay.
And
there's thousands of us stuck everywhere, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a guy, Nate, in Istanbul. He's a solo rider, and he's in Istanbul, which I think just opened, because that's where Ryan Pyle was locked down too. So,
We'll start moving again.
We're gonna move again.
We've weathered it this long. We're ready to travel again.
We are. We're ready.
Yeah. So I want to thank you, Travis, for reaching out to me and giving me another great discussion, great interview, a great just hanging out together for the podcast.
Sure.
Because
our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Yeah, we need to keep these things going. And thanks for being a listener. And you're a reader of the book, huh? Yeah.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah. Like, I wish I had it with me, but as you know, you got a limited amount of stuff on
that's a book you definitely don't want with you, man, because it's a heavy book. Oh my goodness! Hey, we just it was kind of breaking news about 3 weeks ago or whenever I first got these. It was it was sold out for almost 4 months, 6 months, something around that.
No,
and, yeah. So I just so it's available again, and now available in a more economical and also lighter weight softcover version.
Yeah.
So, but
there's a beauty of the hardback, because it sits in our front living room. and anybody who visits it always grabs it and flips through it.
Yeah, it's a visual. It's visual candy for sure.
Great book.
It's
Great
good.
book.
Yeah.
I love it.
Visual candy. I love it. That's
Yeah.
And
the
I'm
word.
glad. Not only did you have the courage to overcome like the
publisher.
getting broken and the broken leg and the broken wrist, but you also had the courage to publish it, even though it was difficult. So
Yeah.
Gave you so many-
Yeah.
I'm
Everybody.
glad Kickstarter worked in your favor.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody said just write the narrative, and I'm like, I don't want to write about me. I don't want to write about me. I want to write about them. And then you got to see the pictures, the food. But well, cool. I'm so happy that you are finally getting on the road next week, and
We are too.
and I look forward. I'll be following Viajar, Viajar.
AR
Moto, MOTO.com. Travis and Chantil Gill from California, Idaho, Colorado, and just about Florida and everywhere else in the country. They are not shy of moving, so I think you've got a great journey ahead of you, and I look forward to learning more. And let's get you back on the podcast after about 6 months of moving, and let's see how things have changed in your perspective. How's that sound?
I love it.
We
I
love
love
that, Alan. We'd love that.
Okay, well, I want to thank my guests, Chantil and Travis Gill, for joining us from Spain. From what's the town again? The region?
We're near Cartagena in the region of Murcia.
Murcia. Okay, awesome. Near Cartagena. Fantastic. Well, join them at viajarmoto.com and be sure to tune in to the next episode of the WorldRider Podcast. This is Allan Karl, and thanks for tuning in.
WorldRider, the podcast edition. Podcasting. Who would have ever